the bigger question, Tracy, is who winds up being the week 1 starter for San Francisco come the start of the 2023 season?
Well, with the 49ers, everything is very dependent on Friday. And I say Friday because that is the day Brock Purdy has his surgery. So, and what we just don't know yet, it seems that it's going to be a repair, but they won't know for sure until they get in there. So it could very well be this repair reconstruction hybrid. And it could also be a full reconstruction. We just don't know for sure. The optimistic view, everything pointing towards a repair with a 6-month timeline. My guess would be, let's say that is the best case scenario and it is a 6-month timeline. I think they're still probably going to be without Brock Purdy for a couple of weeks. But if that's the case, their week 1 starter may be Trey Lance, but their starter is Brock Purdy, if that makes sense. And I think the 49ers seem to be, at least in the moment, pretty committed to Brock Purdy and Trey Lance. They're going to need to bring in a third guy. They're going to have to bring in a veteran quarterback that they can kind of sell on the idea that you're probably not going to play, but you might play because we went through 3 quarterbacks last year. So who's to say? Now, I think Lamar's availability changes things a little bit. I'm sure they're looking into it. I think any team like that has to look into it, has to at least have the conversation because he is such a high caliber quarterback. I think you could say fairly that Lamar Jackson is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL.
Absolutely.
So, I think you have to look into it, but everything really, it's so dependent on Friday. I think that's the case. I think it is so dependent on Friday. If Brock Purdy has a full reconstruction and is out the entire season, then that's a whole different conversation because now what they do at quarterback is not so set in stone. Not that set in stone, but it's not so obvious. But I like I said, I think you have to have the conversation. I'm sure they are having the conversation. That's not inside info. That's just common sense. I'm sure they are having the conversation. But ultimately, everything is going to depend on what the results of Friday's surgery are.
Tracy, what I would love to see, in the name I've seen, is Baker Mayfield. San Francisco, you're in close enough proximity to LA. Let's get the Progressive commercials back for a new season. Let's do it. What say you?
It's funny because last season when Baker Mayfield became available, Kyle Shanahan was asked on one of our Monday conference calls, is there any chance? And he shut that down as quickly as I've heard him shut down anything in a very nice way. I've always been a fan of Baker, but no. So the issue is, though, with a Baker Mayfield is, again, he's a starting quarterback. I mean, he may not be a great starting quarterback, but he is a starting quarterback and he sees himself as a starting quarterback. So I don't know how you bring him in there. Again, it all depends on Friday because I don't think you're not going to be able to sell Baker Mayfield on you're going to come in as a third quarterback. You might end up as the second quarterback, but we're committed to Brock Purdy. You might get to play a couple weeks and, you may start the first couple weeks of the season, but we're committed to Brock Purdy. So that becomes the issue with anybody kind of like a Baker Mayfield. It might be something maybe you could sell to an Andy Dalton. Maybe you could sell to a Jacoby Brissett. But I think it's going to be hard to sell that to Baker Mayfield unless Purdy's out the entire season and now you're bringing someone in to compete with Trey Lance for the starter. Then it becomes a very different conversation.
I think it's very telling that the 49ers didn't pursue Mayfield mid-season as soon as Jimmy G went down. And I'll be honest, I'll admit when I'm wrong, Tracy. I thought the 49ers were just done. At a certain point, you need high caliber quarterback play. And if you don't have one, it greatly hamstrings your ability to win in this league. And yes. I really thought, okay, Mayfield would make sense to try to salvage the season. And it turns out Brock Purdy was that guy for the 49ers prior to his injury. And I'm totally with you from what I saw from afar. I don't watch 49ers games nearly as closely as you do, but it seemed to me that Brock Purdy had his thing going. He's got a lot of great weapons around him, which help him. And certainly he's not asked to do everything, but he was put in a position to succeed. And clearly the 49ers saw something in him that wasn't evident where, okay, Trey Lance goes down, Jimmy G goes down. It looks like your season's over. And Brock Purdy might have played better than either of them.
I would say, I think Jimmy Garoppolo was playing the best football of his career when he went down.
Okay.
So I don't know that I would say Brock. I think Brock played as well but I would say Jimmy really was playing the best football of his career. In terms of Trey, he got one game in a monsoon and one series, and then his season was over. So it's kind of hard to say. One thing I will say about Brock Purdy is Kyle Shanahan seems to trust him in a way that I have not seen him trust another one of his quarterbacks. He has a tremendous amount of trust and faith in what he can do and allowing him to do it. And Brock earned that. And Brock Purdy played an extremely high level, and he beat good teams. I even look at the Miami game, and he came into that game early. I mean, that's the game where Jimmy got hurt, and he came into that game early. And granted, they put him in a position to succeed, and he does have all those weapons around him. But at that time, Miami was one of the top teams in the league. I mean, the 49ers kind of broke the Dolphins. They fell apart after that game, but they were one of the top teams in the league. That was a good defense that he was playing against, and he did have to lead them to win. Then the next week, he prepares for the Buccaneers, who, as we've said, really were not a very good football team. And then it's just week after week. For me, when he really showed that he had it and he could very well be it, was his third start, which was in Seattle on a short week. He was hurt, and in one of the toughest places to play in the league against a division rival to win the NFC West. And he came in and he played great. And I think that, to me, showed me a lot. It showed the 49ers a lot. And that, I look at that moment where Brock Purdy won the starting job, should he be healthy in 2023.
Divisional opponent in the Seahawks. It's always a little bit different when it's a team in your division. Seattle and Kansas City are the two loudest places in the NFL. And if you want to look it up, you can look at the decibel caliber that they have at both of those stadiums. Loud venues. And it's almost like a raucous college atmosphere at an NFL game. So I'm
It's a good way to put it.